Have you ever noticed that the man most women ache for is not a man at all, but a reflection of the unhealed hunger inside them? Why do so many intelligent, self-aware women feel magnetized to what withholds, what ghosts, what dazzles but will not stay? Imagine discovering that the pattern-stalking love is not fate, but an archetype wearing the mask of desire. What would it mean to stop chasing and become a gravitational field instead? Tonight, a quiet law is revealed. The Anima chooses the mirror, the shadow binds the contract, and attraction blooms only when inner polarity is restored. If longing has felt like a labyrinth with no door, keep walking, because the door appears only when the inner world is reordered. 1. The mirror is not a man. Why are so many women convinced that chemistry is proof of destiny, when it often signals a wound finally getting its audience? The unconscious seeks completion by projecting what's disowned onto the body of a man. Tenderness if she has hardened, structure if she has collapsed, danger if she has lived contained and controlled. The heart mistakes recognition for compatibility and excites the nervous system into a trance where the familiar pain masquerades as passion. This is why validation becomes addictive, because it is not love that is sought, but permission to keep repeating what is known. The unexamined projection keeps her in a loop: idealization, pursuit, disappointment, despair, restart. The cost is severe. Emotional availability becomes rare, standards erode quietly, and time, her most sacred currency, bleeds into the hands of men who cannot hold it. She begins to negotiate with her own value, shrinking in order to be selected by what she would never choose if she were fully awake. The way out is not another man, it is deprojection. To see the face behind the mask, she must first recall the pieces she gave away: softness, innocence, erotic aliveness, sovereignty, discernment. In Jungian terms, the task is to call the Anima home, reintegrate her intuition, her symbolic sight, her capacity to receive without abandoning boundaries, and her courage to withhold when something in her knows the cost. When projection ends, clarity dawns. He is not medicine. He is data. If he withholds, he reveals where she withholds from herself. If he confuses, he points to where her inner world is unorganized. If he is inconsistent, he reflects the places where she negotiates her needs. The archetypal image here is Persephone returning from the underworld, not as a victim dragged down, but as a queen who has seen beneath and no longer mistakes darkness for depth. The cinematic image: a cathedral mirror shatters, and behind it, an open window. No rescuer, only light and fresh air. One-line visualization: picture your reflection stepping out of a mirror, handing back what you once gave away, and quietly walking beside you as you leave. Anonymous empowerment, quote, "The moment you stop seeking yourself in another, you become irresistible to the man who can meet you." And so, when the mirror is reclaimed, a deeper polarity becomes possible, the kind that doesn't chase, but calls. Which leads to the next secret, where desire finds order and the right man finds the signal he can trust. 2. The feminine magnetism of ordered chaos. Why do some women draw devotion effortlessly while others collect almosts and maybes? The answer is polarity, but not the performative kind. It is the quiet architecture of inner order wrapped in living emotion. Feminine magnetism is not chaos. It is chaos held by self-respect. Without inner order, emotion becomes an unending storm that commands rescuers and repels protectors. Without emotion, order becomes sterile, signaling that there is nothing alive to protect, nothing sacred to pursue. When a woman is unintegrated, she oscillates. She either overfunctions, pursuing, planning, proving, or collapses into romantic hope, outsourcing leadership to fantasy while ignoring evidence. Consequences follow: breadcrumb relationships, textual intimacy with no embodiment, the high of pursuit followed by the ache of absence, and a calendar filled with men who meet desire with delay. Over time, her nervous system sets to scarcity. She learns to ration joy, to accept the bare minimum, to deaden instincts that would expose the truth too early. The empowered solution is the synthesis Jung hinted at. Hold the opposites. Commit to self-governance, clear standards, clear boundaries, clear pace, while remaining radically available to feeling. This is not softness without spine, nor boundaries without heart. It is the lioness at the river, utterly fluid, utterly watchful, unable to be rushed. Practically, this looks like non-negotiables defined in advance, a deliberate tempo to connection, and a devotion to the truth over the fantasy. Emotional access is not revoked, it is refined. Curiosity remains, but testing replaces trusting too soon. The mythic metaphor is Artemis in her forest, receptive to beauty, guided by instinct, protected by her own law. The cinematic image, a storm over an ocean suddenly reveals a lighthouse, the sea still wild, the light unwavering. One-line visualization. See yourself as a flame inside a glass lantern, warm, bright, alive, untouchable by the wind. Anonymous empowerment quote, "When your heart beats inside your own structure, the right man recognizes the rhythm and moves toward it. When the feminine becomes ordered chaos, feeling anchored by form, something changes in the field. Men stop guessing, energy stops leaking, and attraction stops being a gamble. The signal clarifies, and with it, the path for a worthy man to step forward with certainty." 3. The law of projection. Attraction as ancestral echo. Why do so many women feel an inexplicable pull toward men who feel familiar in a way that is both intoxicating and unsafe? Not because destiny is whispering, but because history is repeating. The psyche, loyal to its unfinished stories, casts ancestral patterns onto modern faces. The inner child seeks the parent she never had. The shadow seeks the predator it thinks it can finally tame. The anima seeks the hero she exiled when self-sufficiency became armor. This is why rational boundaries collapse in the presence of chemistry. The nervous system is not evaluating love, it is responding to an echo. When this mechanism runs untouched, a woman becomes a curator of ghosts. She receives promises as payment, tolerates uncertainty as proof of passion, and romanticizes repair as intimacy. She begins to confuse intensity with safety, and the body learns to crave cortisol dressed as desire. The cost is subtle but devastating. Life shrinks to the size of a fixation. Friendships thin, purpose dulls. The right man passes by unrecognized because he does not trigger the script. The empowered solution is radical deglamorization, to see projection not as prophecy, but as a haunting to be cleared. In Jungian work, this is the return of the image, naming the pattern, tracking its origin, and withdrawing emotional currency from the fantasy, so the adult can choose what the child could not. The woman who dissolves projection becomes a sovereign curator of attention. She no longer tries to earn closeness with contortions, nor confuse man with medicine. Cinematically, imagine a theater where a film is playing on loop. Suddenly, the projector shuts off and the white screen remains. Without the movie, the man stands there as he is. No music, no myth. You've felt this before, haven't you? That moment when the spell breaks and what once seemed luminous becomes only human. One-line visualization. Picture yourself holding a golden thread that runs from your heart into the past, and calmly cutting it, then tying it to your own waist. Anonymous empowerment quote, "What you stop projecting, you start protecting." When projection loosens its grip, something astonishing happens. Attraction matures. It is no longer a hunt for a rescuer, but a recognition of a partner. And in that recognition, another hidden law awakens, the one that governs standards, pacing, and the art of earned intimacy. 4. Standards are spells, the moral physics of selection. Why do some women feel consistently underchosen by men they admire while being eagerly pursued by men they don't? The answer hides in an energetic economy. Attention is currency, and standards are the bank. When a woman offers access without process, she becomes emotionally inexpensive, valuable perhaps, but discounted in practice. The psyche of a worthy man recognizes structure. He calibrates to boundaries the way a river calibrates to a shore. Without this structure, the masculine becomes unanchored, and the courtship defaults to convenience. This is not punishment, it is physics. In the absence of standards, ambiguity spreads. Conversations stretch without shape, dates drift without commitment, and exclusivity is delayed into oblivion. Anxiety follows, rituals form, over-texting, over-accommodating, over-explaining, while resentment quietly accumulates like sediment at the bottom of a beautiful glass. The solution is an inner legal code, simple, lived, immovable. This is not a list of demands. It is an ecosystem, pace before passion, proof before promise, reciprocity before revelation. It means saying no to warmth without effort, attraction without intention, and access without clarity. It means ending situations that correct themselves only when threatened. The archetypal symbol here is the temple, not guarded by hostility, but by thresholds. Not everyone enters. Those who do remove their shoes. A one-sentence revelation slides in like flint striking steel. Maybe you've silenced yourself too long. The cinematic metaphor: a velvet rope outside a hidden jazz club with no sign. Those who know, those who don't pass by. One-line visualization: see yourself standing at a bridge with a lantern at dusk. No one crosses without meeting your eyes and stating their purpose. Anonymous empowerment quote: "The doors you close for the wrong man become the doors the right man respects." What would you have done in this situation? Drop it below, then like and subscribe if this is the kind of psychological work that keeps your standards high and your soul intact. When standards take their throne, another alchemy becomes available. Boundaries set the rhythm, but it is feminine radiance, self-fed, not man-fed, that sings the song a worthy man can hear through the noise. And that is where the deeper turn begins. 5. Radiance without ransom, the self-fed flame. Why do some women glow in a way that compels honorable pursuit while others dim themselves waiting to be discovered? The answer is not more charm or more effort. It is the origin of the light. When radiance is outsourced, fed by attention, applause, or the promise of being chosen, it becomes volatile. It flares in proximity, starves in absence, and trains the nervous system to chase reassurance instead of living in replenishment. This creates a seduction loop. She performs aliveness to earn presence. He enjoys presence without earning devotion. Both mistake performance for intimacy. The body knows it's unsafe. She begins rationing emotion, rehearsing conversations, crafting texts like spells, trying to engineer an outcome instead of revealing a truth. Over time, the cost is identity erosion. Her hobbies atrophy, friendships thin, dreams go on layaway, and the mirror reflects a woman who is technically alive yet spiritually off-grid. A worthy man cannot calibrate to a light that winks on and off based on the room he occupies. He seeks a woman who generates warmth whether he's near or not. The Jungian remedy is not mystique, but individuation. becoming a source rather than a seeker. This is the practice of rerouting energy into the body, devotion into purpose, and pleasure into self-stewardship. It looks like building a daily ritual landscape where sensuality, discipline, and meaning feed each other. Strength training to honor the body's power, creative practice to honor the soul's voice, solitude to honor discernment, and joy that does not need a witness to be real. In archetypal language, this is Hestia, the keeper of the sacred hearth, whose flame steadies the entire home. Cinematically, imagine a lantern lit from within, carried through a crowded marketplace, countless faces, countless noises, yet the flame never flickers because its glass is whole and its oil is full. You've felt this before, haven't you? The effortless pull of a woman who is not asking to be seen. She is doing something undeniable, and the seeing happens as a side effect. One-line visualization. Picture your chest as a sun warming a garden. Flowers open because morning came, not because anyone knocked. Anonymous empowerment quote: "When your light costs you nothing to keep, it costs him everything to ignore." When radiance no longer begs, gravity changes. Men stop testing for access and start applying for a role in a life they respect. But radiance without inner alignment still leaks into fantasy. And that is where the next secret cuts through illusion and returns power to reality. 6. The fantasy fast, detoxing from imagined intimacy. Why does the heart leap ahead to a future that hasn't been earned? Nicknames after 2 dates, shared dreams after 1 confession, a wedding imagined from a look across the room. Not because love is foolish, but because imagination is hungry and the culture has trained it to snack on daydreams. When fantasy fuses with attraction, the brain secretes future chemicals, dopamine and oxytocin, bonded to a man's potential rather than his pattern. She starts rehearsing closeness in her mind, curating playlists, designing trips, telling friends he's different, and in doing so, she bypasses the most sacred discipline in attraction, letting reality reveal reality. The consequences are brutal. Selective hearing, red flags rebranded as quirks, inconsistent effort interpreted as shyness, avoidance labeled as needing time. The body feels the gap and grows anxious. She compensates by over-communicating, making herself hyper-available, or pretending to be unbothered while dying for certainty. A worthy man becomes confused by the mismatch between the intimacy she grants and the intimacy he has actually earned, and an unworthy man becomes strategic, enjoying benefits while avoiding commitment. The empowered solution is a fantasy fast, a deliberate season of sobriety from imagined intimacy. For 30 days, no future tripping, no couple identity language, no plans beyond what has been mutually committed, no dopamine spikes from stalking his digital footprints. Replace prediction with observation. Track cadence of effort. Track reliability under stress. Track how disagreements resolve. When fantasy is starved, truth is fed. In Jungian terms, this is the withdrawal of libido from the image, redirecting it to reality, allowing the unconscious to stop scripting and the conscious to start choosing. The mythic symbol here is Odysseus tied to the mast. He hears the sirens but does not steer toward them. Cinematically, see a fast-forward reel grinding to a halt. The scene returns to present speed, his actual words and actions in crisp color. What if you finally chose yourself fully? One-line visualization. Imagine holding an hourglass. Each grain is a day you refuse to leave the present. Watch them fall like gold as your discernment gets rich. Anonymous empowerment quote: "The future stops lying when the present is allowed to speak." With fantasy quiet and radiance steady, alignment becomes audible. The masculine who is ready, willing, and available rises into view, not through declarations, but through pattern, And now, the next movement, the hinge between attraction and commitment, demands a deeper law, boundaries that bless and tests that tell the truth. 7. Boundaries that bless, the alchemy of earned access. Why does the wrong man feel punished by a boundary while the right man feels guided by it? Because a boundary is not a wall, it is a covenant with one's own worth. When access is given without a rite of passage, the masculine does not calibrate to honor, it calibrates to ease. Many women were taught that love means endless accommodation, that compassion means self-erasure, that availability equals desirability. This confusion breeds lopsided dynamics. She becomes the flexible scaffolding around his preferences, while her needs are placed on silent mode, set to vibrate in a pocket she no longer checks. Over time, this erodes attraction. The very concession made to keep him dissolves the respect required to retain him. He is not the villain, the physics are. Attraction, like any ecosystem, responds to form. Without edges, there is no containment. Without containment, there is no pressure. Without pressure, there is no crystallization into commitment. The consequences of boundarylessness are predictable. Ghosting rationalized as busyness, intimacy without accountability, cycles of nearly exclusive followed by sudden distance, and a nervous system addicted to apologizing for needing anything at all. The empowered correction is profound and deceptively simple. Boundaries that bless. Not punitive ultimatums, but sacred protocols that protect connection from chaos. This means time boundaries, no late-night access without daytime intention. Communication boundaries, consistent cadence, not performance spurts. Body boundaries, intimacy that escalates only with clarity. Emotional boundaries, sharing depth with reciprocity, not as a down payment. In Jungian terms, this is the self installing an inner gatekeeper, ensuring that eros serves individuation rather than consuming it. Imagine the archetype of the high priestess. The temple is open, but only the prepared may enter. Those who do meet silence that tells the truth. Cinematically, picture a garden with a low stone wall and a single iron gate, roses climbing, bees humming. No menace, only meaning. You've felt this before, haven't you? The quiet dignity of a standard that needs no explanation because it is lived so consistently, it becomes atmosphere. One-line visualization. Envision yourself drawing a golden circle around your feet. Anyone who steps inside must arrive with clean hands and clear eyes. Anonymous Empowerment quote, "Boundaries are the architecture of self-respect. The right man reads them like a map." When boundaries bless instead of bruise, the right man recognizes a rare ecology. A woman whose love is abundant but not unguarded, whose heart is open but not unedited. This is where attraction crosses the threshold into reliability. Through the one practice that reveals reality faster than romance, calibrated testing. 8. Tests that tell the truth. The ritual of revealed character. Why do some connections feel certain at the start but unravel as soon as real life enters the chat? Because chemistry is a spark, but character is the firewood. The feminine that trusts too soon outsources verification to time, hoping longevity will prove alignment. Yet time does not create character, it exposes it. Without conscious tests, months become experiments in wishful thinking. The woman who tests wisely is not playing games. She is reading the blueprint. She watches for continuity between words and patterns, for how he holds tension without turning cruel, for whether his desire converts into logistics without being negotiated into existence. She observes how he responds to her no, how he treats people who cannot benefit him, how he repairs after rupture without minimizing harm. Absent these tests, the consequences are predictably painful. cycles of apology theater, breadcrumbing framed as patience, leadership that appears only under threat, and intimacy that lives in the future, tense. The empowered path is a ritualized sequence that reveals character without drama. Pace as a test. Does he maintain initiative across weeks, not days? Integrity as a test. Does he keep small promises without prompting? Capacity as a test. Can he plan, protect time, and steward resources in ways that include her reality, not just his preference? Humility as a test. When called in, does he defend ego or elevate understanding? In Jungian language, this is the marriage of eros and logos, feeling paired with structure, so that love is not an accident, but a civilization. The mythic symbol is the forging of a sword. Heat, fold, cool, repeat. The metal becomes resilient, not despite pressure, but because of it. Cinematically, imagine a corridor of lit torches. Each torch is a test that he passes by, showing up the same in shadow as in light. Maybe you've silenced yourself too long. Say the truth earlier and watch who stays. One-line visualization. See yourself standing beside a river with stepping stones. Each stone is a standard. He crosses safely by stepping in rhythm, not by leaping in promises. Anonymous empowerment quote, "The right man does not fear your measures. He is grateful for the mirror." With boundaries that bless and tests that tell the truth, the field becomes unmistakably clear. The wrong dynamics self-select out. The right presence moves in with steadiness, not spectacle. And as character reveals itself, devotion ceases to be a performance and becomes what it was meant to be all along, a daily choice anchored in reality, lit by a flame that no longer needs rescue. The mirror is not a man. The heart keeps mistaking recognition for destiny, craving the familiar ache as if it were proof. When projection breaks, the face dissolves and the mask returns to your hands. The consequence of forgetting, you bleed time into illusions and call it love. The medicine of remembering, you see a man as data, not deliverance. Your worth stops bargaining with hunger. Ordered chaos. True magnetism is not thunder. It is the storm held by a sovereign sky. Emotion without structure drowns. Structure without emotion starves. When your inner law and living heart align, devotion finds its map. No chase, only gravity. Ancestral echo. Attraction is often an inheritance, unhealed scenes casting their light on present faces. The child reaches for the parent through the lover. The shadow rehearses danger and names it fate. Break the echo, and the body remembers safety. Desire becomes a choice, not a compulsion. Standards as spells. Every boundary writes the moral physics of connection. Access without process devalues the temple. Ease without effort unravels respect. Close the wrong doors, and the right man finally sees the gate he was made to honor. Radiance without ransom. Light that depends on witnesses flickers. A self-fed flame turns a life into a holy fire. When the hearth burns from within, performance ends and presence begins. What ignores you becomes irrelevant. What is worthy steps nearer. Compelled by warmth, it cannot counterfeit. The fantasy fast. Imagination can become a drug that sweetens the poison of delay. Withdraw from imagined intimacy and feed reality with attention. Watch clarity blossom without apology. The future stops lying when the present is allowed to speak. Boundaries that bless. A boundary is not a blade. It is a blessing that preserves the garden for what can grow. When sacred thresholds return, resentment ends and dignity breathes. Love becomes precise, not punitive. Tender because it is held. Tests that tell the truth. Chemistry is a spark, character is the firewood. Ask the ritual questions that heat reveals, not hope conceals. What stays consistent under pressure is what can be trusted to last. And now, the quiet descent. Let the noise fall from the body like a robe after rain. Imagine the unseen cathedral within, where your shadow sits beside your light, and neither begs the other to disappear. Let the anima stop spinning around the archetype of rescue. Let her become the hearth that calls the right presence by the laws of the soul. Detach without deadening. Surrender without dissolving. Choose a form for your love that your spirit is willing to inhabit when nobody is watching. The sacred lives in the unspectacular pattern, how you keep your word to yourself, how you protect your dawns, how you let endings be holy. Integration is not thunder, it is the soft click of a lock as you return the key to your own door. As Jung whispered from the depths, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Let fate end where awareness begins. Let desire become a witness to your wholeness, not a ransom note to your fear. Walk with the steadiness of one who would rather lose a crowd than betray a covenant. Your silence isn't weakness. It's the beginning of your return to yourself. What part of you is still performing, just to be loved? Subscribe to Jung Mind, where your shadow speaks and your soul finally listens.